All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most legendary stories ever told, Homer's epic tale of Odysseus. We are going to trace the entire, frankly chaotic map of his journey and uncover the real secret behind his survival. So think about ancient heroes for a second. You probably picture massive swords, gleaming armor, and sheer brute strength, right? Well, Odysseus, he was a bit different. Even Zeus himself described him as a man who excels all men in wisdom. And as we'll see today, it wasn't just his muscles that saved him against some truly impossible odds. It was his unmatched tactical intellect. Here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with the Trojan horse mastermind, look at the Nostos drive, then dive into monsters, magic, and cunning. After that, captive of the nymph, the return of the beggar king, and finally, restoring the household. Okay, part 1. The Trojan horse mastermind. Let's jump right into where the story of his actual return begins, which is right at the end of a grueling, blood-soaked 10-year siege. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this epic, just consider the timeline of his absence. Odysseus is away from his family for 20 total years. Think about that. 10 of those years were spent fighting the Trojan War, followed by 3 chaotic years of wandering the seas, and then 7 long years trapped in captivity. As his comrade Nestor noted, at every twist of strategy, he excelled us all. Troy ultimately fell not by Greek brute force, but by Odysseus's cunning. He masterminded that brilliant wooden horse trick to sneak troops inside impenetrable walls. And even before that, he actually subjected himself to mortifying strokes, sneaking into the enemy's city disguised in filthy rags as a beggar just to gather intel. His mind was absolutely always his greatest weapon. Moving on to part 2, the Nostos drive. To understand why in the world he puts up with the next decade of torture on the open ocean, we really have to look at his underlying motivation. His entire journey is defined by this ancient Greek concept of Nostos. Now, this wasn't just a simple trip back. Nostos was a desperate, almost primal drive to get back to his native soil, no matter the cost, the pain, or the amount of time it took. And tied directly to that idea of Nostos is oikos, meaning the family, property, and household unit. For Odysseus, simply stepping foot on the beaches of Ithaca just isn't enough. His ultimate duty is to restore his oikos from the absolute chaos it fell into during his 2-decade absence. So, part 3, monsters, magic, and cunning. Now we're heading out into the open ocean, where his brain is pushed to the absolute breaking point by mythical horrors. Picture this, Odysseus and his men are trapped in a cave by a giant flesh-eating Cyclops named Polyphemus. Brute force isn't going to move the massive boulder blocking the door, so Odysseus orchestrates this brilliant 3-step escape. First, he gets the giant absolutely drunk. Then, he blinds his single eye with a sharpened wooden stake. Finally, he has his men cling to the bellies of the Cyclops' prized sheep, literally sneaking out right under the monster's hands the next morning. It is a tactical masterpiece. But here's the catch, and it's a massive one. This cunning victory came at a terrible cost. As the blind prophet Tiresias later confirms to Odysseus in the underworld, blinding the Cyclops earned him the unyielding wrath of the sea god Poseidon. And Poseidon doomed his voyage, ensuring he'd lose all his men and suffer endlessly. Facing the wrath of a literal god, Odysseus is thrown into a rapid-fire gauntlet of lethal obstacles. After losing men to giant cannibals, he's forced to outwit the witch Circe to reverse a spell that turned his crew into pigs. He literally has to sail to the underworld to consult the dead. He has to thread the needle between a many-headed monster named Scylla and a swallowing whirlpool called Charybdis. He even survives the Sirens' deadly song by cleverly plugging his men's ears with beeswax. It is a masterclass in survival through pure wit. Which brings us to part 4, captive of the nymph. Wit can only take a mortal so far against the gods. And here we see Odysseus hit absolute rock bottom. So his starving men foolishly slaughter the sacred cattle of the sun god, and in response, Zeus destroys their ship. Odysseus is the sole survivor, washing ashore on the island of Ogygia. Here, the ultimate man of action is basically trapped by the infatuated nymph Calypso. For 7 long years, he just sits on the beach weeping for his home. His Nostos is completely stalled out until finally Zeus decrees that his exile has to end and destiny ordains he must return. Part 5. Return of the Beggar King. What actually happens when the great tactician finally washes ashore on his beloved home? Look at this incredible juxtaposition. He left Ithaca as a glorious, powerful king in bronze armor leading a massive fleet. He returns exactly 20 years later as a lone survivor, stripped of literally everything. Aided by the goddess Athena, he disguises himself in filthy rags, playing the role of a broken beggar so he can silently infiltrate his own palace. A palace, by the way, that has been overrun by brazen, violent suitors trying to steal his wife, Penelope. Pulling off this disguise requires unimaginable discipline. He walks right into his own dining hall and endures brutal, reckless taunts. The suitors sneer at him, one even hurls an ox hoof at his head. Odysseus definitely has the physical strength to just split their skulls on the spot. But he steels himself instead. He keeps his mind in full, icy control. His legendary restraint here is honestly just as powerful as his physical strength. Behind closed doors, he finally reveals his true identity to his son, Telemachus. They embrace, crying these intense tears of joy and grief. But they don't celebrate for long. Together, the mastermind and his son meticulously scheme a deadly trap, making absolutely sure that when it's sprung, not a single traitor is going to escape. And that brings us to part 6, restoring the household. We've finally reached the explosive climax of our explainer. Queen Penelope sets a challenge for the suitors: string Odysseus's massive bow and shoot an arrow through a line of axes. Every single suitor tries and completely fails to even string the thing. But then the beggar steps up. With virtuoso ease, Odysseus strings his mighty bow, shoots a perfect shot through the axes, and sheds his disguise. He vaults right to the threshold to block the only exit, and, alongside his son, slaughters the entire mob of suitors. The trap works absolutely flawlessly. By relying on his brain just as much as his brawn, through clever disguises, incredible restraint, and calculated planning, Odysseus reclaims his life. He finally achieves his desperate nostos, and through bloodshed, his oikos is restored to its proper order at long last. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. When the muscles fail, when your entire crew is gone, and when even the gods themselves turn against you, isn't true power really found in a cunning mind? Thank you so much for exploring the incredible journey of Odysseus with me today.